Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this special episode. Tonight, you're about to drift into a story that starts like a dream. A dream born in a small village, in the heart of a young boy named Leo Marten, who longed to become a Formula One driver. Don't forget to subscribe, and tell us what your dreams are, below in the comments. So let's start. The Racer's Dream. Sector 1. Sparks in the Rain. In the quiet village of Hollenbruck, nestled between green meadows and forest-shadowed hills, the nights were slow, and the stars shone brighter than the street lamps. It was the kind of place where time moved gently, but inside one small house on Linden Row, a boy dreamed of going faster than anything in the world. His name was Leo Marten. From the moment he could walk, Leo was drawn to motion. As a toddler, he would push toy cars along the floor for hours, mimicking the sounds of engines, imagining overtakes and crashes. His mother had passed when he was a baby, and his father, Nico Marten, a former junior circuit racer turned mechanic, raised him alone. Their house was modest, but its walls whispered stories of speed. Framed photos of dusty podiums, a cracked racing helmet resting on a bookshelf, and a VHS collection of legendary F1 seasons that Leo watched until the tapes wore thin. One evening, after dinner, Leo sat curled on the floor, eyes wide as the final laps of the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix played on their flickering TV screen. "Papa," he asked, voice small, "do you think I could do that one day?" Nico looked up from his sketch pad, where he was drawing suspension designs for a client. "Drive like them." He chuckled. "Leo, if you listen more than you talk and try harder than you think you can, maybe you'll drive better." Leo smiled, and something shifted inside him. A thread pulled tight his first tether to the dream. The years passed like pages flipping in a breeze. By the time Leo turned 11, he had memorized more Grand Prix circuits than multiplication tables. One morning, after saving for over a year and using what little Nico could spare, they drove out to an old, cracked karting track an hour away, tucked behind a cattle farm and guarded by stacks of worn tires. It wasn't glamorous. The pit area was an uneven patch of gravel. The cart Leo rented was battered, the seat cracked and repaired with duct tape. But when he buckled in and gripped the wheel, something happened. The world sharpened. The engine sputtered to life. He pushed the throttle, and the dream opened its gates. He didn't win that day. In fact, he barely managed to keep it on the track. He spun out twice, ran wide at every hairpin, and finished with sore arms and bruised ribs. But he was smiling. "Can we come back next week?" he asked breathlessly, cheeks red from the cold. Nico just ruffled his hair. "Let's see how long your ribs last, Racer." From then on, every weekend meant early mornings, packed sandwiches, and the whine of engines echoing across cold asphalt. Leo improved fast. He studied like a scientist and drove like an artist. His rawness was there, messy at times, but bold, instinctive. At the track, he met others like him. One stood out, a sharp-eyed girl with green streaks dyed into her short, black hair. She was fearless on the brakes and cruel in corners. Her name was Mika Lavoie, and she quickly became both rival and friend. "You brake too early," she said after their first race. "You oversteer into every turn," Leo replied. They grinned at each other like knives. Later came Tariq El Sayed, quiet, methodical, with an engineer's mind and a calm demeanor. He rarely spoke, but when he did, it mattered. "You both drive with your hearts," he said once, "but racing isn't always poetry. Sometimes it's chess." Together, the three of them chased the dream in tandem, balancing school, racing, part-time jobs, and growing pains. On rainy days, they practiced in the worst weather, saying it made them sharp. On clear days, they pushed themselves to the limit, burning tires and counting seconds. By 14, Leo was winning regional races. His name was passed around small motorsport forums. Scouts came by. Most left unimpressed by the roughness in his technique, the wildness in his corner entries. But one didn't. At the Midland Karting Championship, a storm had broken out during the finals. Visibility was poor, and many drivers hesitated. Not Leo. He started P5, sliced through the spray, and danced on the edge of control with a kind of reckless grace. On the final lap, He caught Mika in turn 9. She defended too hard. They touched. Mika spun out into the gravel. Leo hesitated, but only for a moment. He crossed the finish line first. When he returned to the pits, Mika stood waiting. Mud smeared across her cheek, helmet under her arm. "I thought you'd stop," she said. Leo shook his head. "Not today." She stared at him, then laughed. "Good. That's racing." It was then that a tall man approached, mid-40s, sharp eyes, wearing a jacket marked with Talon Racing Academy. "Leo Marten?" the man asked. "We've been watching you. You have something raw. Not refined, but real. We want you at our academy. Trials begin in June." Nico took the card that night and stared at it for hours. "You really want this?" he asked Leo. "You understand what it'll take?" Leo nodded. "I want this more than anything." So Nico stood, slowly, as if shedding old fears. "Then we chase it. Together." Talon Racing Academy was unlike anything Leo had seen. Set on the sun-scorched plains of northern Spain, it was a training ground for the fiercest young talents from around the world. Leo arrived with just his duffel bag, a second-hand helmet, and a folder of drawings his father gave him. His dorm was small. His roommate, an arrogant Brazilian named Enrique Silva, greeted him with a smirk. "Another village boy, huh? Don't blink, or I'll lap you twice." Leo just grinned. "Try." Training began at dawn. Grueling fitness drills, mechanical classes, sim sessions, data analysis. Leo struggled at first. The cars were F4 chassis fast, twitchy, with real downforce. He spun out in his first session, locked up in his second, and crashed lightly on his third. Coach Ramos, a grizzled ex-rally driver with a limp, said nothing for days. Just watched. Took notes. One evening, after everyone had gone back to the dorms, Leo stayed in the garage. He sat next to his battered car, tracing its carbon shell. Ramos appeared. "You like pain?" he asked. "No, Leo replied. "Good, because you'll feel it every day. But if you stay one day, you'll feel something more." "What?" Ramos tapped Leo's chest. "That fire. The one that says, 'I was born for this.'" And Leo did stay. He trained harder, studied the data sheets late into the night, practiced racing lines in his dreams. Tarek joined him at Talon soon after a welcome face. Mika was accepted the year after that, turning the academy into a battlefield of familiar faces. They all pushed one another. Rivalry turned into fuel. Mistakes turned into lessons. By 16, Leo was promoted to Talon's junior F4 team, representing the academy in regional championships. The first season was rough. Mechanical failures, mistimed overtakes, P8 in standings. But year 2, everything clicked. Pole positions, sustes laps, brave overtakes that left crowds breathless. The final race of the season came down to Leo and Tarek, side by side through most of the race. In the final sector, Leo went for an impossible move around the outside. It stuck. He won. Champagne, trophies, interviews, his first taste of the spotlight. Afterward, back in the dim silence of the garage, Leo stood alone, staring at his car. Nico called. "I watched the whole thing." Leo smiled. "Did I do okay?" There was a pause. "You made me proud, son. Not for winning, but for never giving up." Leo closed his eyes that night, muscles sore, heart light. The dream wasn't a dream anymore. It was real, and it was just beginning. Sector 2, fire on the horizon. Leo Marten was 17 when he signed his first professional racing contract. It came in the form of a thick envelope delivered by courier to the Talon Academy dorm's black wax seal. Eclipse Racing's silver crest pressed into it like a secret. Leo tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside it read, "Eclipse Racing Junior Program invites you to drive in the 2022 Formula 3 European Series as a full-time driver. Seat confirmed. Hashtag Team 47. He barely had time to absorb it when Mika burst into his room, already holding her own contract. "They call me too," she said, eyes dancing. "Only I'm driving for Falcon Edge. So I guess we're rivals again." Leo smirked. "When weren't we?" Formula 3 was a different beast. Faster cars, grippier tires, fans, TV cameras, and pressure. So much pressure. Sponsorship meetings, race engineers, post-session debriefs that lasted hours. Every mistake had weight. Every overtaking move could be the difference between a future in Formula One or a return to obscurity. Eclipse racing was efficient, intense. The engineers wore matching black shirts and spoke in clipped tones. His race engineer, Sabine, was calm, precise, and brutally honest. Your entry into turn 6 was too shallow. That's why you lost exit speed. But no excuses, Leo. Fix it. He loved it. Leo threw himself into the rhythm of racing life. Practice, data, simulation, media training, and race weekends across Europe. Spa, Monza, Hockenheim. He began building a fan base people drawn to his aggressive yet graceful driving style. Journalists called him the Red Flame because of the streak of red on his helmet and the boldness of his passes. But success didn't come immediately. In his rookie season, he finished 6th overall. Mika placed 4th. In the postseason interview, she grinned at him. "Catch up, Leo. I'm not waiting." And Leo did catch up. By the next year, they were both fighting for the F3 title. Races between them turned into duels. DRS battles down straights. Brave braking contests into hairpins. Sometimes Leo came out on top. Sometimes Mika did. But every time, the crowd roared. Leo won the final race in Zandvoort, a dramatic sprint through heavy crosswinds. He took the championship by just 4 points. As he climbed from the car, helmet in hand, arms wide, he looked to the stands where Nico waved a Talon flag, crying. It was official. He was F2 bound. Formula 2 was the final staircase to heaven. Every single driver was championship grade. The paddocks were bigger, the press louder, the risk higher. Many called it the Wild League because crashes were frequent and egos clashed like thunder. Leo now had a personal trainer, a full-time nutritionist, media schedules, simulator days. It felt less like racing and more like orbiting a star, never quite touching it. The car, an F2 beast with a V6 turbo engine, was his new obsession. The braking G-forces made him dizzy at first. The acceleration pressed his spine against the seat like a rocket. Sabine remained his engineer. "This is where the real ones are made," she told him before his F2 debut. "Win or lose, you stay sharp." He didn't win immediately. In fact, he DNF'd his first race in Bahrain after a misjudged lunge on the final lap. But Mika DNF'd too, spinning under pressure in turn 9. They met back in the paddock, sweaty and silent, then burst out laughing. "I hate you," she said. "You love racing me," he said. "That too." By the midpoint of the season, Leo had 2 wins and 3 podiums. He was adapting. So was Mika. So was Tarek, who'd returned to racing after a year off for injury. The trio reunited in F2, now competitors in the same field, still bound by history. They were gladiators fighting for a single golden seat, a Formula One seat. Then came a call. It was the evening of his final F2 season. Leo sat in a hotel room in Budapest, reading setup notes. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He picked up. "Leo Marten," said the voice. "This is Victor Hadley, principal of Stellar GP. We've been watching you closely. We'd like to meet after the final race." Leo stood frozen. Formula One, the dream. He met Hadley in person the next week. The team had history, not as fast as the giants like Phoenix or Falcon, but respected. And Leo was offered a rookie seat. He signed without hesitation. The 2025 season opener in Australia was everything Leo imagined and more. The paddock was enormous. The cameras flashed like lightning. The pit crews moved like armies. He was fitted for his F1 car, a sleek crimson rocket, car 47, bearing his name in gold on the cockpit wall. His first teammate was a veteran named Alex June, calm and guarded. "You'll do well," June said. "Just survive the first 3 races. Then you'll believe you belong." Leo did better than survive. He qualified P14, finished P9 in the points. The headlines read, "Leo Marten scores on debut." He began climbing. In Monaco, he danced through the streets, finishing P6. In Silverstone, in front of a cheering UK crowd, he overtook 3 cars in 1 lap and took P4. But it was Monza where he earned his first podium. The track roared as he crossed the finish line third, just behind Mika and Costa Bold, seasoned driver known for his daring and his darkness. Leo stood on the podium with wide eyes and champagne-soaked hair. Below, Nico wept, shaking hands with strangers. After the ceremony, Leo found Mika backstage. "You ever think about Hollenbrook?" he asked. She smirked. "All the time. I even missed that dumb cow you hit on the way to the kart track." "That was you." "Nope, definitely you." They laughed. The season rolled on. Leo ended his rookie year P5 in the championship. Not bad, not perfect, but the whispers began. Martin's got it. A future world champion? He began his second F1 season with more fire, more belief. Now a real contender. He won in Spa, then in Imola, then a dramatic battle at night in Singapore where he defended against Costa for 18 laps and crossed the line 0.3 seconds ahead. But it was the Austrian Grand Prix mid-season that would change everything. Leo walked the Red Bull ring circuit during the track walk. The air was thin, sun high. He stared turn 3, a hard right-hander with tricky camber. Mika jogged beside him. "That corner's tricky when it's hot," she said. "Easy to understeer wide." Leo nodded. "It's the one that bites." She glanced at him. "You okay?" "I've just been thinking," he said. "If this all ends tomorrow, would I still do it all again?" Mika stopped walking. "Of course. That's why we're here. That's why we climb in the car, even when we're scared." He looked back at the track. "Yeah," he whispered. "Me too. Race day." The crowd was electric. Leo started P2, just behind Costa. Mika was third. The lights went out. Engine screamed. They surged toward turn 1. Leo kept tight, stayed second. Lap after lap, he and Costa pulled away from the pack. Tire degradation set in. The strategy game began. Lap 26 Leo was close. DRS wide open. Slipstream humming. He launched into turn 3, side by side with Costa. The cars touched. Leo's rear snapped loose. And suddenly, the world turned sideways. Sector 3, the crash. L'Op Husonhetedik. Austrian Grand Prix. The moment Leo touched wheels with Valtteri Costa, time slowed. At 280 kilometers per hour, it didn't take much a brush of carbon, a slight miscalculation, a twitch in the rear suspension. The back of Leo's car slid out violently. For a second, the car was perpendicular to the track, tires skidding across the tarmac with smoke pouring from the rears. Then grip returned the wrong kind, and the car snapped. It caught the curb, lifted. The 47 car became airborne. There was no sound in Leo's mind, only flashing color, the lurch of his body in the seat, and a sudden realization. This might be it. The car rotated once, then twice in midair, before crashing nose first into the gravel at turn 4. Carbon fiber shattered like glass. The halo saved his skull, but the force bent the chassis sideways. The tires disintegrated, and the engine ripped loose, tumbling across the gravel like a lost heart. Inside the cockpit, everything went black. The world outside reacted instantly. Yellow flags, red lights, screaming engines silenced. Fans stood in horror, gasping, hands on heads. The broadcast cut away, then returned with aerial footage, smoke rising from the gravel trap, safety marshals sprinting. Mika, just behind in P3, saw it unfold in terrifying clarity. No, she whispered into the radio. Did he move? Her race engineer stuttered. Red flag. We'll update you. Stay out. Valtteri Costa, now alone at the front, said nothing. His voice stayed off the radio. Back at the paddock, Leo Marten watched from the team garage, frozen. The monitors all showed the same thing. A broken car split nearly in half, with medics kneeling beside the wreckage. Is that his car? Nico asked quietly, the words barely forming. Sabine, pale and stone-faced, nodded. They couldn't tell if Leo was conscious. He hadn't climbed out. 5 minutes passed, then 10, and then movement. The medics raised their hands. A stretcher. A limp body, helmet still on, placed carefully on it. Applause broke out across the circuit as the camera showed Leo's hand twitch a thumbs up, faint but clear. But behind that hand was a body not moving. Later that night, the air in the hospital was too white, too sterile. Machines beeped steadily. The rhythm of a living heart, but fragile. Leo lay in bed, pale and unconscious, tubes in his arms, monitors on his chest. A brace held his neck. A steel pin protruded from his shattered right leg. His ribs were wrapped. A small line of blood traced the edge of his scalp. Nico sat beside him, his son's hand held tight. The doctors had spoken just an hour earlier. He's stable. No brain trauma. But there's significant nerve damage to the leg. Multiple fractures in the femur, ankle, and foot. We can save the limb. But F1, that may not be possible. Those words echoed in Nico's skull like distant gunshots. Not possible. Not possible. Not possible. He looked at Leo, his boy, his fire, his miracle, and whispered, "You'll get through this. I don't care about the racing. Just wake up." 3 days later, Leo opened his eyes. The world was a fog, soft beeping, the smell of antiseptic, a heavy weight on his chest. He turned his head. Pain, white-hot and instant. "Easy," said a voice. Nico's. Gentle, steady. "You're safe, son." Leo blinked. "Did I finish?" Nico laughed softly, though his voice cracked. Not quite. Leo's eyes drifted down. His right leg was elevated, wrapped, and bolted into a recovery cage. He tried to move his toes. Nothing. Just emptiness. "Papa." Nico paused. "You're alive. That's what matters." Leo closed his eyes again and cried. Weeks passed. Fans sent thousands of letters. Helmets with 47 strong were worn in every junior category. Drivers paid tribute during formation laps. But Leo was silent, hidden away in the mountains of Switzerland at a private rehab center, learning to walk again. He hated every moment, the stretches, the slow healing, the pity in people's eyes. What hurt most wasn't the pain, it was the stillness. The silence where the engine used to be. Mika visited on a rainy afternoon in August. She brought coffee and an old photo of the three of them in karting gear, caked in mud, grinning at the sky. "You still have that?" Leo asked. "Of course. It's my wallpaper." He looked away. "I'm done, Mika." "No," she said. "You're just starting a new race. I'll never drive F1 again." She paused. "Probably not. But that doesn't mean you stop being you. You didn't become Leo Marten because you drove fast. You became Leo Marten because you never gave up." He didn't reply, but the words stayed with him. By November, Leo had left the rehab center. He returned to Hollenbrook for the first time in years. His old room was exactly the same. Posters of Senna and Hamilton, a karting helmet hanging on the wall, and a drawer full of old notes, scribbled lap data from when he was 12. He sat on his bed for hours, thinking, remembering. One night, he walked out into the garage, dragging his weak legs slowly. He ran his hand along the side of Nico's old racing car, a Talon Junior frame, dusty, forgotten. "You raced this," Leo said aloud. Nico stood behind him, only for a little while. "I wasn't as brave as you." Leo looked down. "I don't feel brave anymore." "You are," Nico said, "because you woke up, and you're still dreaming." Later that winter, Stellar GP offered Leo a simulator driver position. He hesitated, then accepted, not to race again, but to stay connected. He gave input, helped younger drivers, rebuilt his understanding of the car from the data up. And he wrote a memoir, Red Flame, The Road to 47. It sold out in a week. 1 year later, Leo stood at the side of the track at Spa, the site of his first when holding a mic instead of steering wheel. He was now a race analyst, hired by Sky Sport to offer insight into the minds of drivers. His commentary was sharp, poetic, honest. Fans still loved him, but he never forgot what he lost, and what he still had. That night, back in his hotel room, he opened a small journal and scribbled a line. "Some dreams don't end when you crash. They just shift lanes." Then he turned off the light and let the silence wrap around him. Sector 4. Echoes of the engine. Years passed. Time, like a patient mechanic, worked steadily on Leo Marten, sanding down his edges, polishing his memories, replacing the raw pain of the crash with something gentler. Not quite peace, but a kind of understanding. Leo was no longer the rising star of Formula One, but neither was he forgotten. At 26, he had become a fixture in the sport, a beloved voice on broadcast, a mentor to younger drivers, and a figure of quiet resilience. His limp was still visible when he walked, a reminder of the crash, but his presence was magnetic. His voice on a race feed was sharp, poetic, and filled with the weight of someone who had once danced with speed and nearly died for it. He spoke not like someone watching from the outside, but like someone who had lived the rhythm of apexes and throttle. Watch her braking in a turn 5. She's not just slowing the car. She's telling it a secret. You see that move? That's not courage. That's trust in the grip, in the car, in the silence between instincts. The world had moved on, as it always does, but the story of Leo's crash remained a ghost that haunted the sport, a reminder of how thin the line is between glory and the grave. And yet, Leo had found something more enduring than speed. He had found legacy. One spring, Tarek invited Leo to give a guest lecture at the university where he now taught motorsport engineering. Tarek had left racing after a serious arm injury. Instead of returning to the track, he'd gone deep into the science behind it. His students idolized him, and when Leo rolled into the lecture hall with a slight limp and a quiet smile, they erupted. He told them stories, not of wins, but of mistakes. Of the night before his first win, when he couldn't sleep. Of the time he ignored Sabine's advice and lost a podium. Of the crash and the feeling of waking up knowing the dream had been amputated. A student raised his hand, nervous. If you could go back, he asked, would you lift earlier into turn 3? Leo paused. No, he said, because if I had, I'd still be dreaming of who I could have been, instead of becoming who I am. That summer, Mika won her first Formula One World Championship. She dedicated it to 3 people: her father, her team, and Leo Marten, the fiercest wheel-to-wheel fight of my life. When she handed Leo the spare replica of her trophy in private, he just shook his head. You earned it, he said. So did you, she replied. In Hollenbroek, the village had changed. A new bakery, a few new houses. But at the edge of town, near the woods, a new circuit had been built. The Marten Academy karting complex, funded by a quiet investment from Stellar GP and donations from around the motorsport world. Leo stood at the gate on its opening day, watching dozens of kids in racing suits line up at the track entrance. Some were nervous, some jittery with excitement. He stepped up to the mic. Welcome, he said. I started in a kart a lot older than most of you. I crashed more than most of you will. But if you listen, if you push, if you remember why you fell in love with the sound of engines, this place will change you. The applause was soft but heartfelt. And then Leo climbed into a kart, his first lap in 5 years. The legs still ached. He'd never race again competitively. But this was just a lap around a track on a sunny morning, surrounded by joy and childhood and memory. The engine buzzed to life. The wheel was smooth and familiar. He took the first corner slowly, then the next a little faster. He felt the wind rush past his face, the smell of fuel and rubber, the vibration in his chest. And for a moment, just a moment, he felt the dream again, not as a career or a title or a burning ambition, just as love, pure and simple. That night, as the stars rose over Hollenbroek, Leo sat on the roof of the garage, knees pulled close, staring at the sky. Nico joined him, passing over a beer. You raced today, his father said. Sort of. You smiled like it was real. Leo nodded. It was. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Leo looked at his father. Do you ever miss it? Racing. Nico leaned back. I miss the noise, but not the speed. I found something better. What? You? Leo looked down, swallowed hard. I used to think the dream was just F1, he said. Now I think it was this, all of it. Even the crash. Even the days I couldn't walk. You still dreaming? Leo smiled. Always. One last time, in the quiet of night, Leo opened his journal, the same one he'd carried since recovery. On the final page, he wrote, the dream doesn't end at the finish line. It changes shape, from speed to silence, from glory to giving, from racing to remembering. You once flew, and though I fell, I still rise. He closed the book, turned off the light. and let sleep take him slow, deep, and full of the sound of engines far away. Roaring not toward victory, but toward home. Sleep well, racer. The dream is yours now.